welcome to our 50th CarpFix Live. That's quite a lot of CarpFix Lives.
That is a lot of CarpFix Lives.
And you will see that we have got someone else. Rather than Daryl, we have got Tom Stokes here because we're somewhere else. For those of you who watch this live quite a lot, you'll see that we've not got our normal background. We're actually at Orchid Lakes filming what is at the moment a very tricky session,
To say the least.
Yeah, but we've caught fish, which is good.
Thankfully we have.
Yeah,
caught
and
one this afternoon.
there's some very nice fish in here. There's how many carp in total roughly are in here?
I don't actually know. A couple of hundred.
At
least, I'd say.
Swim Booker, where you book the lake through, it says on there that there's around 17 £40 plus carp. So there's a good head of carp, and they're all absolute beauts. It's got new owners, and they've got a good stocking program going on. So it's definitely one to watch for the future. And if you like coming with a mate and booking a swim, it's perfect for that because they've redone all the swims and they look really nice. But we're just currently sat outside the tackle shop. We were going to go in there, but it's too hot. But we're gonna have a little chat with you and get the lowdown of what you've been up to recently. A lot of people will already know, and then we'll get some questions in as well. So apart from the Manor campaign, is there any other over the past couple of months? What's your going into like summertime been? Have you been doing loads of corder work, or have you been doing like your own fishing? What have you been up to?
Well, I've actually been pretty fortunate this year that my corder work has been based around my own fishing. We've filmed another Mindset film this spring on a lake that I can't disclose the name of, and it went rather well. I don't want to go into too much detail. There'll be a film out on it next year, so that's took up the main part of my spring, shall we say. I was on there from April until basically my last trip was the trip before the first week. The first trip to the Manor. Obviously, we've done those trips to the Manor, and I've done a little bit of local fishing recently. A few nights on a little lake local to home, and then obviously we've been here, and that's been pretty much it. That's my spring pretty much covered.
I suppose with the Manor campaign in the diary, your month of July was pretty much blocked out with that.
I mean, it panned out perfectly. Like I say, Corder wanted to get a spring campaign film. I started that in April. Caught a good one literally the week before the first trip that we did at the Manor. So that was the perfect ending for that film. We went to the Manor. And then obviously having those trips, even though there was a gap between trips, that sort of put a stop to my sort of campaign fishing because I like to fish consistently. And then obviously I've just been flitting about a bit since then. And then next week I'm on holiday with the missus for a week.
Nice.
And then a week or two after that we're on holiday again for a week. So I'll have a little bit of I will still go fishing. I always go fishing as and when I can. But I'll just be flitting about a bit now for the rest of the summer.
Yeah, you've been fishing hard, so little bit of a jolly, wind down a little bit, and then back into it probably.
But when I go on holiday, I always take a rod.
Do you? A little telescopic.
Got a little travel rod that fits in my bag.
Go for like the mullet, is it, or something like that?
Well,
whatever swims.
Whatever swims.
Little spinners and stuff. Let's talk then a little bit while we get some questions in about the Manor. Obviously, Pecky went there and caught it. And he already had some more weeks for when you went, in case that he didn't catch it. And then he caught it. And then those weeks came up. Were you like an instant, yes, I'm going to fish that?
Yeah, well, I can still remember the day that Daryl rang me up and offered me these weeks. So he'd caught it. I think it was the very next day after he caught it last autumn. And he rang me up and he was like, look, I've got these. It was 5 trips he had booked.
Right.
Obviously, typical Daryl, he's well prepared just in case he didn't catch it.
Yeah.
And he was like, would you like any of these weeks? And I thought about it, and just having the 1 week is, it was a golden opportunity really handed to me on a plate.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's a tough lake to get on, isn't it? You know, he
Well, with
generally
that
has,
fish, yeah.
like he offers his regular customers the weeks first. So obviously the best weeks of the year get snapped up quickly. It's quite tough to get your foot in the door, shall we say, for what is one of the biggest carp in the country, and like definitely the biggest fully scaled mirror in the country. So anyway, I thought about it, and like the thought of just doing 1 week, I thought if I don't catch it that 1 week, I'm going to kick myself. So I sort of looked at the weeks, and I thought, well, you've got the first 2 trips that Darryl had planned were sort of very close to spawning time, which I thought could be a little bit hit and miss. But the last 3 weeks, which were July. Was it the last week of June? Last week of June, and then 2 weeks in July. I thought they are definitely going to have spawned by then. They're going to be hungry. And historically, looking back at previous captures that fit last year, it did 2 captures in June. So I thought, you know, there's a good chance of it getting caught at least once, if not twice, during that period. But obviously, it's quite a lot of money. I'm not going to lie. So I basically got back to Darryl, and between myself, Darryl, and yourself, we came to an agreement that, you know, I could have those 3 weeks, and we would make a film out of it. And it turned out to be a very wise decision. Yeah, I mean, obviously you all know how that panned out.
But for everybody's reference, it will be the final part will be live tomorrow from 5 o'clock. So you'll be able to see yourself catch the fish, which I've seen obviously snippets of the landing and stuff, and it is obviously it's crazy. Talking about that fish in particular, when you were like, right, I'm going. You know, people often talk about can you target a particular fish? I was fortunate enough to be there on the first week, and now I've seen you fish for a specific fish such as that. I think you can almost target a certain fish. Do you think, like, because you're looking at the location, etc. So we saw it.
Yeah, you can. I mean, to a degree, if you're fishing out in the pond over bait, as I was, you can never sort of specifically target in, you know, you're fishing for bites and you just got to hope that one comes along. But you can sort of, I don't know how to say this really, you can tweak your approach mainly with location. And also, as you will see in the film, I don't want to give too much away, with tactics as well. To sort of give yourself the best chance of catching that big one. I mean, I started off my campaign on past history of that fish. I started off in the swim that had done both of the captures of that fish last year in June. But we ended up doing 3 nights in that swim. You'd have already seen that if you've watched the films. But then it quickly became apparent that the lake was a little bit different this year. The weed had came up in different areas, and there was a couple of key sightings. We had a potential sighting with a drone. Me and Scott clocked it, and I saw it, and we were both pretty sure at the time. But then over time, I certainly started to doubt myself a little bit. But the day after, the morning after that sighting, potential sighting of the big one with a drone in this particular corner of the lake, I saw 2 very big fish show. I will talk about it. If you've seen the film, you'd have heard me talk about it. There's a lot of carp in that lake. They were very spread out throughout the lake, but most of them are sort of mid-doubles to high 20s. There's a handful of 30s. There is a couple that go over 40 pound, but the bulk of the fish are 20 pounders. These 2 fish that I saw show the morning after we think we saw the big one were noticeably bigger fish. We also saw in that corner what we are pretty sure is the lake's biggest common. Now, I don't want to give too much away about Daryl's capture because he's got a film coming out himself, but he actually caught the 3 biggest fish in the lake together in succession. So they obviously like to be in the same area of the lake at similar sort of times based on how Daryl caught them. And like I say, I saw these 2 very large fish show the one morning. It could have been the same fish show twice. I'm not saying it was the big one. It was hard to say. It was on the far side of the lake, a couple of 100 yards away, 150, 160 yards away at least. But they were very big, much bigger than anything else I'd seen show that trip. It could have been the big one, or if it wasn't the big one, it was either second or third in command. And going off that kind of information, that, you know, the big uns like to hang around together, I'd sort of come to the conclusion that the big uns were liking this corner of the lake. And the reason they were liking the corner of the lake is because it was by far the weediest area of the lake. Every single day there was big groups of fish building up in the weed. They were either on the shallows in the afternoon sun or in the weed to the right of the swim. There was weed to the left of the swim as well. But even though they were using the rest of the lake, at some point, obviously I was there for 5 days at a time, and I knew that at some point they were using, in the days especially, they were using that area a lot. So basically I got myself into what I believed was the best position possible to have traffic from that, to have that carp swimming past me, shall we say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've seen it in the second part about raking the spot, but I don't want to give too much away until you've seen the film.
What was it like between those sessions?
Very nerve-wracking.
Were you just constantly checking feeds of...
Well, the thing is, right, that carp is historically quite friendly. I think last year it did 6 or 7 captures, that carp did. And this year, it had yet to be caught, which added extra pressure because not only did that mean it was extremely due, it meant that if it got caught in the meantime, the chances are it wasn't going to get caught again. I'd done extremely well on the first trip, caught a lot of fish. I think we worked out that I had 21 bites and landed 18, which we worked out is roughly 20, almost 25% of the stock, 20% of the stock on the first trip, and other people were catching in the meantime. And I just thought, you know, you just got to hope and pray that it didn't get caught, but I certainly lost a few nights sleep over it. The relief when we got back and it hadn't been caught was especially knowing the full moon was coming. Yeah. Obviously, there's never any guarantee you're going to catch it, especially as it hadn't been caught all year. But yeah, having that opportunity to fish that lake on your own, for that carp, but I've got to stress this because a lot of people are, oh, you had the lake to yourself, and I am extremely blessed to have had that opportunity. Even for me, that is a once in a lifetime opportunity, you know, to have that lake completely to yourself to fish for one of the best, biggest carp in the country. I will probably never have that opportunity again in my lifetime. And that thought was in my head every single day that I needed to make the most of this because it's never happening again.
Well, you certainly did. And you managed to get it on the second week out of 3.
Yeah, it was 7 nights in.
Yeah.
It was. 7 nights in.
Yeah, because you still had 3 nights of the second trip.
The second trip left, It's just, and it came, like, you know, like bang on the full moon. A lot of people say about big carp and full moons, you know, but there's definitely something in it. You know, I've caught a few of my big uns. I caught the baby black. Funny enough, the boy. Oh, I don't want to say too much, but the bite off the big one came quite late morning. I think it was just before 10 o'clock. Very similar, and that was on the 10th of July. 5 years ago, on the 3rd of July, on the day of the full moon, at 10 o'clock, I caught the baby black. You know, so
there's something there.
There's definitely something in it, but it's and something else I'm just going to mention as well about this. That week in July, the sort of start of July, like probably my 3 best carp that I've ever caught. I caught the Burfield Common on the 6th of July, Baby Black on the 3rd of July, and the Lord on the 10th of July. So that 7-day period there, like at the start of July, and a lot of people don't like the summer.
Yeah.
Like, you know, hot. They've all been in hot weather, you know. But
Well, the seasons have completely changed now. Like it's been so. I mean, up until recently, in the last week or so, it's been so dry, and like there's less water in the lakes, which means they're more weedy. Like the manor was down in water quite a bit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that there's so many variables, but yeah, you know, if you're catching those fish at the start of July, you know, there's something there.
I mean, personally, I think it's just because I know a lot of people don't like the summer for whatever reason. They don't like going out when it's hot or whatever. But that sort of end of June, start of July, they are flipping hungry. Spawning is well out the way. I mean, obviously they could be down in weight slightly. They might not look their absolute best, but at the end of the day, I just want to catch them. I don't care when I catch them.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we've got lots of questions. I'm sure the Lord of the Manor will come up again at some point. But yeah, if you want to watch that, it's on tomorrow from 5 o'clock. You could, if you've not watched episode 1 and 2, you could just watch them all back to back if you like, and then you'll get the full story of how the spots evolved, the location. Yeah, all the detail is fully covered in the films. Yeah, I'm going to watch part 2. Obviously, I edited part 1, but I'm going to watch part 2 and 3 back to back.
You know, I've not watched any of them yet, but even the missus said to me, she's like, we'll watch them, but I'm going to wait for part 3 to come out, and then we're going to binge watch all 3 in one hit.
Well, it's got to be it'll probably be nearly, got to be 2.5, 3 hours of stuff. Of, you know, of a very good film to watch. So, should we have a look at some questions?
Yeah, go on.
Jace has said, evening, happy 50th live events. Well done, Tom, on the Lord of the Manor. Such an epic fish. What would be your go-to mono line for fishing weedy lakes with the odd mussel beds up to 100 yards? And braid isn't an option. Many thanks and keep it up.
Right. Well, firstly, thank you, Jace. What would be my go-to mono for fishing weedy lakes with the odd mussel beds up to 100 yards? Braid isn't an option. So I'd probably recommend the 0.40 lung chuck monofilament. I think that's £20. So £20 lung chuck. Now, the reason why I'd probably recommend that over sort of the other monos in the Corda range is it's very low stretch. So if the lake's weedy, you're going to be fishing a lot more accurate than you would be with a stretchier mono, like perhaps subline or whatever. You register the drop a lot better with it because it's you know, it's got a lot less stretch. And if you say it's weedy and there's mussel beds, I don't like my line to sink too much. Something like a fluorocarbon is going to sink very quickly amongst the weed, potentially over those mussel beds. Whereas, you know, if it's weedy anyway, I'm one of them. If it's weed in a lake and you're fishing over it, I don't worry about line lay too much because it's going to be rubbish whatever you do. That line does still sink. It's extremely robust. I've used it quite a lot. You can easily cast it 100 yards, if not 120, if you're a decent caster. So, yeah, that's probably what I'd recommend. 0.40, £20 lung chuck.
Beautiful. Hopefully that helps, Jace. Right, Mick the Greek Mix is one of our regulars, who is pretty much always on the lives on an evening. Are you still a fan of Amnesia D, or do you much prefer rigs like spinners, etc. these days?
Right, so great question. I get asked this a lot.
Yeah.
The Amnesia D rig is a great rig. It will always be a great rig, and it will always catch carp. You know, I owe a lot to that rig. I caught most of my best carp on it, Burfield Common, Baby Black, Pristine from Flint. That was pretty much my exclusive bottom bait rig for a decade, maybe more. But I now use the spinner pretty much exclusively because I've seen it on the underwaters. I've seen it get spat out a couple of times. My one worry with the D rig was always that if the fish approaches from over the top of the lead towards the hook and sucks the hook bait up, because of the stiffness of the rig, it is limited on how it can go in the mouth. You know, I've seen fish try and suck it up, and because of from that angle, and it not, you know, the hook not make it into the mouth. The hook bait sort of makes it to the lips, but the hook doesn't make its way in there. Obviously, if you left it out there long enough, one's going to eventually pick it up from the right angle and you will catch it. But the spinner does everything the D-rig does. You know, it's got a stiff boom that's reusable, so I don't have to tie a D-rig every time. You can use a D-rig kicker, so you've still got a D-rig on the end of your spinner, but by having that swivel there and the loop on the end of the boom, it just adds, you've got a hinge there, obviously at the hook end. So whatever way the fish approaches the hook bait and picks it up, the hook is able to turn and catch hold. To put it bluntly, it does everything that the D-rig does and more. So ultimately, I do believe it is a more effective and efficient rig, hence why I now pretty much exclusively use a spinner.
Cool. Mick has also asked, what's your favourite single hook bait?
Favourite single hook bait?
Is there one particular one?
A single yellow pop-up soaked in pineapple and isotonic goo. If I'm chucking, I mean, I have caught them at this time of the year on singles, and if I was chucking out a single at this time of year, I'd chuck out a cork ball pop-up, fish meal, something dull, you know, like very smelly. Sort of, that's what but most of the time you're fishing singles is winter and early spring, and if I'm chucking singles out, my go-to is a yellow 14mm yellow pop-up, a PB from Oxford CarpFix. They're super buoyant. They're a great sort of canary yellow colour, and I'll soak it in pineapple and isotonic goo just for added attraction.
Cool. Nathan, things flying around here. Nathan has asked, when fishing with braided mainline, do you tie a heli lead-free lead core leader to your fluoro leader or direct to your fluoro leader?
It totally depends on the venue I'm fishing. I mean, for years when I was using braid to begin with, like Burfield, Englefield, I used to just fish braid, mainline, straight through to a sort of 5-foot lead core leader, 5-6 foot lead core leader. Caught absolutely loads doing so. But these days I do use a fluorocarbon leader. I use usually about 15 to 20 foot of 20 pound IQ2. And when I was fishing Stone Acres, I just fished that fluorocarbon leader straight through to the cog lead system, to the lead clip basically. Reason being, the fish, I mean, the leader itself, that 20 pound IQ2 leader, is extremely robust anyway. It's really tough, sinks really well, and the Stone Acres carp were incredibly cute, so I thought taking away that lead core leader was an edge, you know, so that's how I fished Stone Acres, fluorocarbon straight through. But this year I've been fishing a really low stock gravel pit. You know, there's a few snags out there, like bars, buoys. It's a bit, you know, it's a bit rough and ready, shall we say. So I have gone back to putting the lead core on the end. I'll probably do, if you want it to be as disaster proof as possible, I'd rather have that lead core on the end, but at the same time, it totally depends on the venue. If you want it to be a little bit more stealthy, get rid of the lead core and fish the fluorocarbon, but like I say, it totally depends on the lake, really.
Yeah,
I'm happy to fish either or.
Yeah. Cool. Steve Smith has said, good evening, guys, from a new member. Good evening, Steve. Grant Harvey, how did you get to be a professional angler? Who initially picked you and gave you the chance?
Great question. Another one I get asked a lot.
Yeah.
So I was extremely fortunate, really. Obviously, I've carp fished for as long as I can remember. I started fishing when I was 6. I started carp fishing when I was about 12. Went every single weekend. Absolutely loved it. Was super keen. Never, especially coming from the Midlands, never had any hope of ever becoming a professional angler. It was totally beyond the realms of possibility in my eyes. You know, I never even considered that to be an option. I just went fishing every single week because I absolutely loved it. You know, I pretty much dedicated my life to it. I worked all week and fished every weekend. Did that for as many years as I mean, obviously, when I was a bit younger, you have them sort of late teenage years where you sort of go out. You know what it's like. You go out, you know, get pissed. Like whatever else that comes with it, but from like sort of probably from the age of about 19, 20, I was pretty much like every weekend I was fishing without a shadow of a doubt, and caught some nice carp along the way, and basically how it came about. This is going to be a long one. This is.
That's right.
Is totally out of the blue. I ended like obviously I caught some great carp, and totally out of the blue one day, I had a guy message me. I forgot his name now, but he had a podcast called the Spodcast. I'd never heard of it. He asked me if I'd do a podcast for him. At the time, I'd never done anything like this.
A little bit like what we're doing.
Yeah. He basically said he'd come down the lake to me. He seemed like such a nice guy. You know, he asked so nicely. I checked his Instagram page out. He had a few hundred, 600 or something followers at the time. I thought, well, of course they know to him. It's not like anyone's going to listen to it anyway. I'll just do it. So he came down to the lake. I was fishing Englefield at the time. And he recorded a podcast about my time on Burfield and the capture of the Burfield Common. And he basically went home. He loved it that much. He went home that day and instantly uploaded it. And in terms of his most listened to podcasts, he said he'd done was with Adam Penny a couple of years earlier, and he'd had like 8,000 listens or something like that. Well, I think mine got more than that in the first 24 hours. Yeah. Like it basically went a bit mad. Like everybody seems. I thought no one's going to hear it, and everybody seems to listen to it. So I did that. Thought nothing else of it, you know. And then, that was in the November. Then out the blue in the February, Damo, as in Damien Clark from Corda, messaged me. He'd got my number off a mutual friend. And he's just like, hello, mate. You know, I really like the podcast. You know, really enjoyed it. Like, love your passion. Blah, 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 blah.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. And he, at the time, I was with Thinking Anglers, just getting bits of free tackle. But Damo offered me anything I want from Corda, as in the stuff that Thinking Anglers didn't do, like leads, PVA, you know. He said, mate, if you want anything from us, you know, heli safes, those kind of things, he says, don't hesitate to ask. I'll sort you out. And bless him, he did. I put a little order in. I was like, flipping it, this is good.
It's all right.
And then a week or so after that, I had Simon. I forget his surname. Simon Pitt. That's it. You got it. Who used to
light a little bit.
Who used to do the Corda podcast? He messaged me, and he was like, "Mate, I've just listened to your podcast. It was the fucking bollocks." He goes, "We've had it on in the office here at Corda HQ. Everybody loves it." He's like, "Mate, the only thing that I'm gutted about is that you didn't do it with us." And he was like, do you mind if the next time you catch a big 'un, you come and do a podcast with us? At the time, I was just like, yeah, you know, you sort of say it sort of in jest, like, yeah, no worries, I'll do it. Anyway, that was in the February. Then we went into the lockdown, the first lockdown. We came out of the lockdown, and I went back to Englefield. I've been fishing on Englefield, and a month or two in, start of July, as I mentioned before, I ended up catching the baby black. I caught it on the Friday morning. I'd had the Friday off work, so I got there on the Thursday evening, caught it on the Friday morning, put a picture up on Instagram on the Sunday. Simon then messaged me within an hour, basically saying, mate, I see you've caught the baby black. Can you please come in and do a podcast? Blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right. Well, look, we arranged to do it for the September. now I'm shitting myself. Like I'm thinking I've got to go into Corda HQ. I knew I knew nobody at Corda. The only person I knew, I knew Elliot a bit. I knew Darryl. I'd met Darryl on Burfield years before. But as far as like Dan, Damo, and that, I'd never met anyone like that. And I thought, I've got to go into Corda HQ. This is going to be filmed, you know. You've got to sit in a studio. I've never done anything like this.
Bright lights.
But at the same time, I couldn't not take that opportunity. So in the September, I went down there. We recorded this this podcast. I'm sure if you watch it, you can tell I'm extremely nervous for the first 10 minutes or so. Met Damo, bless him. He waited around to meet me, which I thought was really nice because I couldn't get down there till quite late. So I met Damo for the first time. We had a chat. Went away. Following weekend, I caught the Pristine Common from Flint at over £52. Simon's rang me back up. He's like, mate. He's like, we can't let this podcast go out without you mentioning this fish, this £52 you've had. So the following weekend, I drove back down to Corda and added to the podcast. And like I say, so this was sort of end of September now. And then, I know this story's going to be babbling on a bit now.
No, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, so, that was end of September. Podcast went out. Before the podcast went out, so the podcast was due to go out a few weeks later. And basically, I had one evening, first Tom Rossiter rang me. Obviously, I know Tom really well now, but I'd never spoke to him before, and offered me a position as just like a sponsored angler with Corda, but there was a little bit of a retainer fee involved. I'd never had any kind of money given. It wasn't a lot, but it was something. Well, obviously, I was with Thinking Anglers, and although they were just giving me free tackle, Benny, who was the boss at the time, he was a good mate. So I just went to Benny. I was like, mate, I have been approached by Corda, because I'll be honest. The prospect of Corda, like everyone seems so nice at Corda and so friendly. Anyway, like Benny then was like, "Oh, well, we can give you a bit of cash if you stay with us." It turned into a bit of a bidding war, basically. But I'd actually said to a few of my mates and that, I was like, the opportunities at Corda are like incredible. I said everybody I'd met there, and spoke to at Corda seemed so nice and friendly. Obviously, there's no arguing that it's probably the best range of carp fishing tackle available. I was starting to sway. I was definitely swaying towards Corda. But I hadn't made a decision up. And then out of the blue, one Sunday, I drove back from the lake. My phone was on silent. I got home. I looked at my phone. I had like a missed call and a couple of text messages off Damo. And he was like, mate, he's like, I don't know if I've heard you may have, signed a deal with Thinking Anglers or whatever, and if you have, no worries. But if not, I've had a word with Dan, and we're willing to offer you a full-time position with Corda as a consultant, sponsored angler. We'll pay you whatever you're getting paid now. At the time, I was delivering furniture. I wasn't earning an awful lot. He was like, we'll pay you whatever you're getting paid now. And if you're interested, me and Dan will come down the lake to you this weekend and basically meet you, have a good chat, and basically explain to you what we expect and what we'd like, and sort of lay it out for you. I couldn't believe it. Like I read it. I was like, "You are joking, mate." Anyway, I rang him back straight away. This is Sunday evening. I'm like, "Mate, yeah, like I didn't have to think
once in a lifetime opportunity."
Another once in a lifetime opportunity. Yeah.
I mean, look at the opportunities it's brought you.
It's a 1 in a million opportunity. That is probably more. Like it's probably literally 1 in a million. Like how that had panned out, from just doing that one podcast that I didn't even want to do. To within a few months, I'm now getting offered a job at Corda. And at the time, I can remember though, I said yes because I couldn't say it. But then I've sat back afterwards and thought, like, I'm looking at the likes of Darryl, Dovey, Spooner, Dan, and how good they are on camera, thinking there is no way I can do that, But I thought I'm going to try. Yeah. I'm going to go and give it a try. Yeah. And then the following weekend. Dan and Damo said they were going to meet me down the lake. Damo said we'll be there for 8 in the morning. I gave him the pin, gave him the code for the gate. Well, I didn't actually. It was a key for the gate, and I had to stash it in an empty McDonald's cup in the bushes and tell Damo where it was so he could let himself in the morning. I can remember 7:59, he texted me saying we're here at the gate. So then it's like a 5-minute drive from the gate to round to where I was fishing, and I am sitting there like shitting myself. I've never met Dan. I know like, they're on the way round to me, like, and I'm sat in my swim. But yeah, they came round, and I can still remember. I had a chair, and like I offered Dan a chair. He's like, no, I'll just sit on that bucket. Damo had himself a little, like, I think it's actually the fold-out cord.
Is it the new one?
But at the time, it was like some early prototype that Damo had. He sat on that, so I had to literally have one of them either side of me. I'm like, bloody hell. But it was like, they were so sound. Like, obviously, if you're an angler yourself, everyone's like-minded. Sat down. Within 5 minutes, we was chatting away about the lake, what was in there, you know, and yeah, they basically offered me the dream job as such. And Dan went after a couple of hours. Damo actually stayed for most of the day, drinking tea. And he went away, and that evening, he basically emailed it me in writing, and that was on the Saturday, and on the Monday I went in and handed my notice in after 14 and a half years.
But that was but a nice feeling though, knowing that you were going to, move on to, being able to go out fishing. Obviously these are the parts of the job, but going out fishing and, and enjoying it.
Mate, like, I still have to pinch myself every single day.
Yeah. What am I doing today? Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm not lifting a box.
Like, obviously I have to do certain things. I've got certain obligations for Corda.
Yeah.
But it's all based around fishing. It's just, it's a great position to be in.
And this is the thing, like, look at the position you were in. Obviously, you caught those fish. You put yourself in the position of going onto a podcast. You were, motivated to do it. If you didn't do that, you could still be, moving, furniture.
Yeah,
and
if
stuff.
it wasn't for that one,
but
Dom, that was the mate's name, Dom from this podcast. I owe him a beer. I owe him more than a beer.
But you did it yourself. You went there yourself as well. He met you. But
that podcast changed my life.
Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Like I say, it wasn't something I ever expected. I never wanted for it. I never even once in my whole life or angling career thought I'd love to be a sponsored angler, full-time angler one day. Because you look at the guys that are doing it, and everyone's very much like sort of Essex and South based generally, especially with cord. And like, it's just such a rare thing. I don't think you can even aspire to it.
No.
Like, well, I certainly didn't.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to youngsters don't, like, but I didn't. I didn't build my hopes up for anything.
No.
That opportunity.
I think it's inspirational though, because you've shown that if you go out there, obviously enjoy fishing, catch the fish that you want to catch, but it's inspirational because you've you said you weren't keen, not keen, but you had no experience in front of the cameras, but you knew that was going to happen, so you're putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, but you put yourself through it.
Comfort zone.
Yeah, but you put yourself through it. So if you can do it,
anyone potentially could. Yeah. But I think if you enjoy fishing, enjoy it for what it is. I think if you've got that in your head, I wonder, if you're fishing because you want to become a name or a sponsored angler, I don't feel like that's going to work.
This is the thing. Like the other thing, obviously, you have to think about it is that you're going fishing every day, but you touched on it before. Yeah, don't drink that. Antfest. You touched on it a little bit just now, that Corda have got, because they're growing at such a rate, other opportunities within Corda will come up, because there's going to be a time where you'll not want to go fishing as much. Yeah. But Corda's so big that it'll be quite easy to find a little niche and maybe not go fishing so much, do something else that helps Corda still, and having those those options there, which are they're clearly visible to me. I can see like other avenues that you might want to go down.
Yeah. I mean,
because you don't want to go fishing every single day for your life. You just surely you would get sick of it.
With the way social media and YouTube's going these days, there are ways to get yourself out there. I mean, I think Carl Smith's a great example. he did his YouTube from a very young age, and he is now probably the biggest influencer in fishing.
Big following, yeah.
Incredible following, but again, very passionate. Just did it because he loved it, and you know, there are roots into it.
Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Sorry, that was a very long answer.
But like when you've got, you know, a story like that, it's good to go over it. So hopefully people enjoyed it. I'm sure Ash will cut that one out and put it out as a separate little snippet somewhere. Like, how did you get into Corder Towers? Where were we anyway? We did that one. I did that one. Like Liam Banks. Evening, lads. Tom, the lake I'm on is very weedy, and even the clear sandy gravel spots I have found have got patches of silkweed on them. What rigs would you use? Also, when the fish are showing over very weedy areas, would you be happy casting to them with chods with the bead up 4 to 5 foot?
Right. So the lake I'm fishing on is very weedy. So if I feel like the clear spots are still a little bit weedy, I would go for a spin out with a pop-up on it, still even at this time of the year, you know, a low-lying pop-up. At least you're pretty much guaranteed presentation. You know, if there's a little bit of silkweed on the spot. I've actually done really well at this time of the year. In fact, I did on one of the CarpFix films. Last year we went to Devil's Lane, me and Ash, and I found the fish in an area. There was no proper spots, but I found an area of low-lying silkweed and did really well fishing over the top of it with spinners on helicopters. So yeah, I'd just fish low-lying pop-ups on those sort of firmer spots, even if they are covered in silkweed. As for chods in the weed, I'll be honest, that is not something I would have any confidence in doing. I know people do it and catch fish. Not that I know Jim Shelley, but I know people that talk of the way he fishes, and he would chuck these long-running chods anywhere, not even feel for a drop. If he saw signs of carp somewhere, he would chuck them there, and, you know, he'd just constantly be casting them at signs of fish, and eventually, you know, you roll the dice enough times, you're going to get a 6 eventually. Like, eventually one would land and he'd be fishing in front of a fish and he'd catch one. But I would personally spend a bit of time leading about. Even if I was getting a drop, I am sure, unless it's football pitch to the surface, and if it is, you're not going to be fishing that chods on top of it anyway, not unless you want to catch ducks. I am sure like that you'll get a drop somewhere. And I would be much happier fishing for a drop, even if there's no pullback. If I can feel that lead down through the water, and even if it's a soft landing, if I feel like that lead is landing close to or on the bottom of the lake, I would much rather chuck a pop-up on a spinner or a hinge into the weed for a drop and fish bait over the top of it than fishing just a random chod 4 or 5 foot up amongst weed where you've got no idea of. You know, you could get a drop on the lead. What always scares me with the chods is you could get a drop on the lead, but your hook bait could be strung 5 foot up, a foot below the surface, behind it. That could catch you a carp, I don't know. But it's just not something that I'm very confident in. I'd rather spend a little bit of time leading around and find the most presentable area possible. Even if it's still a bit rubbish, I'd rather fish for drops amongst the weed than just randomly chucking chods in it.
Cool. We've got lots of questions, so let's go through them at a fast pace, because light is going. We need to get the rods back out. What we'll do, if we don't get through them all, I'm going to save them on here, and we'll film them as an extra little bit of content, and we'll just put them out after. Because there's quite a few on there, and we won't get. I'd rather you answer them properly, like fully,
then just give
so we'll go through a few quickly. The ones that, you know, we'll go through them in order. The ones that we don't get to, we'll do after. Tomorrow morning we'll do it while we're waiting for a fish or something, because we will. My concern is the light's going to go very soon, and we still need to get the rods back out. So we'll power through a few anyway. So short answers, if you can.
I'll try my best.
I don't mind the long answers. We're just running out of time. It's got 45 minutes already. Right, Steve Smith. My club lake has carp to 25 plus, as well as other mixed species. No nuts or particles allowed, apart from hemp. What would be your go-to rig and bait tactics for the carp?
My club lake has carp to 25 plus, as well as no nuts or particles allowed, apart from hemp. So you can use hemp. I'm guessing you can use sweet corn. I know it's a pot, but I'm guessing if you can use hemp, you've got go to rig and bait tactics. It depends what the nuisance species are, really. If you're talking tension bream, especially bream, I'd go for relatively large boilies, like 20 millers. Mate of mine's actually doing really well at the minute using 22 millers. You know, obviously you can go bigger, but 22 miller is a nice size. Most carp can pick them up, most tension bream can't. So if tension bream are an issue and you can't use nuts, don't be afraid to use big boilies. There's not many people in this day and age that are doing it.
Cool, lovely job. Andre has asked, evening Tom, I'm going to France next month. I want to get new rods and reels, budget at around 1,000 to 1,200. Need a good all-rounder setup that will also allow me to fish solid bags at up to 30 wraps.
Right, well, if that's your budget, I could save you a lot of money there. I'd say I would seriously recommend the Kaizen Greens. Obviously, you could go for the Platinums, but that's going to probably cost you 1,500 quid for a set of rods. The Kaizen Greens, you know, I'd go for the 12-foot 6 4-pounders. You will easily cast over 30 wraps with them. You know, if you're happy using a 13-foot rod, you could even go for the 13-foot 4-pounders. But I really like the 12-foot 6s. They're a nice length of rod, and I think you can cast them almost as far as a 13-footer anyway. And for the money, they are flipping great rods. I've got a set of Kaizen Greens myself, albeit in 10-footers, but I have used them in the longer lengths. I have recommended them to some real good mates of mine, and they've all brought them and absolutely love them. Corda struggled to keep them in stock because people are buying them, and then obviously word is travelling fast, you know, and more people want to buy them. They are an incredible set of rods for the money. Yes, the Platinums are slightly better, but the difference in price that almost doesn't warrant the difference in performance. You know, the Kaizen Greens, it's only going to cost you 3,500 quid for a set of 3, and they are flipping good rods. Obviously, there is other rods out there on the market, but I've not used them. But I would seriously recommend the Kaizen Greens. Save yourself some money, spend it on tackle and bait.
What about the reels?
Reels?
Yeah.
Again, thing with reels, any big pit is going to get you the same range.
Yeah.
Any decent big pit reel, whether it's an entry-level Daiwa or an entry-level Shimano, I don't think the reel is not going to put any more yards on your cast. It's the mono that you're using and the rod. You know, you can get a lot of decent reels for less than 200 quid each. You know, as long as the spool is the same sort of size as it, you know, they've all got the same size spools.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really know, but I know, like, I don't even know.
Shall I give you my opinion on a reel? We sell quite a lot of them in the shop. Is the Akuma Obsidian. They retail at about 180 quid. You can pick them up for 140 new. The quality is ridiculous. Like Akuma make a lot of reels for other manufacturers.
Yeah.
And the build quality for 140 quid for a reel, like the big pit reels, really good quality.
Yeah.
They're definitely a good shout. You can pick up like Shimano's, like cheaper, that kind of price.
Yeah, I know they do. Is it a Shimano like Ultegra or something for about 160?
Yeah,
but they're not. The thing is, you go for the lower end, and they're not going to last as long.
Yeah,
that's where, you know, if you want a mid-range reel, if you can afford a mid-range reel, you're going to get a lot more lifespan out of it. It's, you know, there's that age-old saying, like, and it's very true, I think, with things like reels: buy cheap, buy twice.
Yeah. Well, the workhorses, aren't they? I mean, the rods are as well.
But you don't need top-end reels, and they're certainly not going to put any extra yards on your cast. The main thing, if you want to cast a long way, is decent rods, tapered line or whatever, and a set of big pit reels regardless of what they are.
Cool. Yeah, hopefully that helps. Lewis, hi Tom. Hopefully getting my ticket on Fen Drayton next year. There is a total leader ban in place. What main line would you use in this situation when casting distances of up to 170 yards?
I'd definitely recommend a tapered main line. Like if you're not allowed a lead, obviously they've got a leader built into them, so it's the perfect way to get around a leader ban. I generally use the 12 or the 15. The 15 up to sort of 120. If I want to be going 130 plus, I'll go down to the 12. Obviously, you have got to take into account how weedy the lake is. Like obviously, if it's really weedy, you don't want to be chucking 150 yards with 12-pound line. But what I've generally found on the big lakes is in the spring, when you want to be going a long way, the fish are in the middle in the spring because there's no weed, so they naturally sit out in the middle because that's where they feel safe. So you can fish long to them with light line, and there's very little weed, so you're going to land them. As the weed comes up in the summer, the fish will naturally start to come closer anyway because they feel a lot safer and they're a lot more inclined to come in closer. So then you can obviously step your main line up to something heavier.
It's funny when you're talking, you start off slow and then you realise.
Yeah, I'm trying to get these out. You know?
Yeah, it's funny. Right, Gaz the Jailer, evening both. Congratulations on the 50th live. Congratulations, Tom, on your recent capture. My syndicate is fishing super hard at the minute. The bottom is fairly uniform, but covered in low-lying carpet weeds, so no real hard spots. When I bring my rigs in, my lead smells really sour. How would you approach this with baiting and rigs, etc.? You experience that? Sour smelling?
Yeah, I have experienced. Funny enough, we had a bit of that problem at the manor.
Yeah.
The manor had an algae bloom before we went there, and it was dying off, the algae, and my leads were coming in really dark in colour and smelling really bad, like almost a metallic-y, musty smell, even off the gravel spots, and I can only put it down to the dying algae sitting on the bottom. But yeah, I'm sure there will be spots in that lake. Just keep an eye out. The carp generally show you where you need to put your rigs and bait. If you watch that lake long enough and hard enough, you'll see them jump, but most importantly, you will see them bubble up. If you can see them bubbling up, you know they are happy to feed in that area. If they've fed in that area with any consistency, it should naturally be a bit cleaner and a bit firmer. But I would happily fish spinners on helicopters for the best drop possible over that silkweed. But yeah, it's the biggest. It's almost like, you know, it gets said to death. But the carp will show you where you need to fish. Keep an eye on the lake. Spend as much time as possible watching. Fish exactly where the carp show you need to be fishing.
Cool. Darren Peters, what is your go-to bait you take everywhere, please?
Go-to bait that I take I'll mention my sort of favourite baits. So, because obviously time of years and whatever, it all differs. But as we're in the summer now, my sort of go-to bait for the summer is Oxford Carp Baits LTK. I've used that bait for like probably the last 5 years. It's a fish meal bait, brown in colour. Everywhere I go, I've caught on it. Big uns love it. I didn't believe that there were such a thing as a big fish bait until I started using this bait, and I've caught a lot of big uns since using this bait. I do think those proper good quality fish meals do generally pick out the bigger fish, and that is very much one of them. In the winter, I switched to a nut mix bait. Again, Oxford Carp Baits, their sort of MC nut, which is a maple cream nut mix. I've used that for over a decade. It's a bit like the Cell. You can take it anywhere and catch on it. I've always got a bucket of tigers in the van at this time of the year. If you're allowed to use them, I will always put a few tigers out, and quite often I use them as hook baits. And I've always got some sweet corn in the van because sweet corn is a great bait and there ain't a carp in the world that won't eat it.
Beautiful. What's the best UK day ticket you fished?
Best UK day ticket I've fished? I'm going to have to say Orchid Lakes, you know.
Yeah?
To be honest, I'll be honest, I've not fished many day tickets.
No.
You know, prior to Corda, I didn't fish day tickets at all. But obviously the last few years I have. Orchid here is a lovely, lovely lake. It's a proper mature gravel pit. Some lovely old carp in it here. Not that I've managed to catch any of them yet. but there is some lovely carp in here. It's weedy, it's features. It's a proper lake, very mature. But I'll also say Norton Disney. Obviously, I have spent a bit of time up Norton.
Sorry about the noise.
Yeah, excuse the motorbike. I have spent a bit of time up Norton. I suppose I am biased a bit. But Norton is a lovely place. The carp are coming on leaps and bounds. It's extremely well kept. All the swims have got loads of water, and there's just a great vibe when I'm up there. So it's a close tie between here and Norton.
Cool. Emil has said, good evening all the way from South Africa. This is a question for Tom. What was the first specific big un you decided to target?
First specific big un that I decided to target was a fish called Trevor. In my local park lake. I come from the West Midlands, near to Dudley. There's a park lake, Himley Hall, 10 minutes up the road from me, 15 acres, quite shallow, gets a bit weedy in the summer. At the time, there was like a handful of originals in there, and the big un Trevor was sort of 32s. There was another 30-pounder called Two-Tone. There was the 518, and they were very, very sought-after fish in my local area. Like I said, there was a couple of 30-pounders. In fact, when I started fishing it, there was 3 fish: the big common, Two-Tone and Trevor, all went over 30 pound. I'd never caught a 30-pounder. 30-pounders were big fish at the time, especially so in my neck of the woods. In fact, they were the only 30-pounders in my local area, and they were my first target fish.
Cool. Nathan, do you fish a wafter or hard hook bait with slow sinking corn on your spinner D rig?
You fish a hard hook bait with slow sinking corn. Yeah, like a wafter. I don't like my hook baits to be too buoyant, so I will fish the wafter. I will happily fish a wafter with plastic corn on it, but the wafter, like the sort of wafters my mate Joe from Oxford Carp Baits does, he doesn't call them wafters, they're called balance baits. He just puts a very small amount of cork in there to sort of counteract the weight of the hook, so you can get away with fishing a piece of fake corn on top of one of them. And it's a hook bait that I've got a lot of confidence in. Not always, but a lot of the time I am tipping my hook baits with a fleck of colour, usually pink, sometimes yellow. But if it was a very buoyant wafter, I wouldn't want to add to that buoyancy with pop-up corn.
Beautiful. Right, a few more questions, then we'll be done. We might get through them if we're quick. Might as well just do them, won't we? Where were we? Any news on when episode 3 Manor that comes out tomorrow at 5 o'clock? Jason, when can we see you and Pecky in Europe having a little friendly fish off for CarpFix? Well, when time permits, really.
Yeah, it's something I'd love to do, but it's obviously...
You have to,
It's up to Scott and Darryl. They're the bosses.
Steve Smith, when leading around on a new lake and swim under... do you use a dedicated marker spod rod or just your normal fishing rod?
Yeah, I definitely use like my spod rod. I don't carry a marker rod and a spod rod. I just generally use my spod rod for everything. But yeah, I definitely use a dedicated rod for it.
Cool. Would you target the bigger fish in a very weedy lake with a good head of 20-pound? Oh, how would you target the bigger fish in a very weedy lake with a good head of 20-pound fish?
There's no specific thing. Is you could fish big boilies, but 20-pounders can still eat big boilies. There is no, unless you see them big uns close in and you can single them out, there is no actual way of singling them out when you're fishing out in the pond. Best way to do it is to fish to the best of your ability, fish as effectively as possible, catch as many as you can. The quicker you catch them, the more you catch in, the quicker you're going to catch them big uns.
Isaac in Canada, he said congrats on the Lord of the Manor, Tom. They've got Canada, South Africa. I think someone maybe from somewhere in Europe.
Thank you very much, Isaac.
Yeah, got people everywhere, mate. Richard Lamb, just received my greens, absolutely awesome rods. What reels would you pair them with? Budget of 500 for 2. You get 2 very good reels for 500 quid. Don't know if you've got any.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not very good when it comes to. I don't really look at tackle.
I mean, Shimano's, Daiwa.
Yeah, like you can get a really good sort of mid-range reel for 2 of them for 500 quid. I don't know. One, is it like Shimano CI4s or something?
Yes, rings a bell, yeah.
One, I think a couple of my mates got something like that.
Or,
I ain't got a clue when it comes to tackle.
I mean, you got to be honest.
Yeah. So, but yeah, basically, you should get...
Well, wait, we'll ask Darryl the next one.
You want a big pit reel. A mid-range, big pit reel. And with that setup, you'll cast just as far as you will with a top end reel.
Cool. Matt Hunt, what would be your go-to approach to try and pick out the bigger fish on a syndicate lake, catching well compared to other members, but haven't managed one of the better fish yet?
Yeah, again, it's hard to see unless you're seeing them in the edge or close up and you've seen them in a specific area and you can target that area. If you're already catching well, keep on catching them and then big uns will come along.
That's it. It's 8 o'clock. You've got to go and get some rods out, but I do need to film you, so don't put them out yet. I'm going to pack all this up. Thank you for joining us.
No worries.
Well done on the.
Thank you guys for listening.
Well done on the Lord of the Manor. And when is it live? When is it on? When is the
tomorrow 5 p.m.
There you go. Tomorrow 5 o'clock. You can watch him catch the Lord of the Manor. Ash did a great job editing it and filming it as well. We'll see you for the 51st in it'll be September, the next one. And that'll be with Daryl. We'll be back home,
back
in our studio with Daryl. So, thanks for joining us.
No worries at all, mate.
And we'll,
pleasure.
Cool. And we'll see you in September.
Take it easy, folks.